Every morning, the world saw a perfect marriage. Smiling selfies over breakfast, matching coffee mugs clinking together, captions filled with hashtags like couple goals and love of my life. Friends and strangers alike envied them online. He was the devoted husband, she the glowing wife, their lives curated into a fairy tale for thousands of followers. But behind the camera, a far darker story was brewing. 32-year-old James Dalton was a rising fitness coach known for his infectious energy and motivational posts. His wife, Claire, managed their shared social media, carefully editing photos to highlight their seemingly flawless bond. To the outside world, they were inseparable. To James, life was beginning to feel like a fog he couldn't escape. It started small. James complained of headaches, dizziness, and constant nausea. At first, he blamed the grueling workouts he put himself through or the stress of building his business. But as weeks passed, his symptoms grew worse. His hands trembled. He dropped weight rapidly. He couldn't keep food down. Doctors ran tests, but everything came back inconclusive. It could be stress, they said. Maybe a virus. James tried to push through it, smiling for photos even as he fought waves of nausea. Claire stood by his side, always with a hand on his arm, always posting updates about their health journey. Her captions turned James's suffering into content. He's my rock, even when he's not feeling well. Love you forever, babe. But what James didn't know, what no one knew, was that the person making his morning smoothies, sprinkling sugar into his coffee, and serving him vitamins with a kiss was also slipping poison into his body every single day. While the world hit like on their happy photos, Claire Dalton was slowly killing her husband. James had always trusted Claire completely. They had met 5 years earlier at a charity 5K, where she volunteered at the finish line and handed him a bottle of water. He liked her quick wit and her smile. She liked his drive and confidence. Within months, they were inseparable. Friends called them the perfect match. Claire quickly wove herself into every corner of James's life. She managed his schedule, handled his social media accounts, and even started running his business finances. "She's my partner in everything," James would proudly tell friends. What he didn't realize was that Claire's control extended far beyond support. It was possession. Behind the curated images of love and laughter, their marriage was strained. James's career was booming, with brand deals and sponsorships lining up, but Claire's resentment grew. She wanted the spotlight for herself. Friends noticed how she bristled when James received praise, how she corrected him mid-conversation, how her smile never quite reached her eyes when others complimented him. Still, no one suspected malice. James brushed off the tension, telling his sister once, "That's just Claire's strong personality. She likes things her way." When James's mysterious illness began, Claire appeared to be the perfect wife. She drove him to doctor appointments, posted loving tributes online about his bravery, and reminded followers to keep him in their prayers. Her captions read like devotion, but her kitchen routine told another story. Each morning, Claire prepared his breakfast herself. A smoothie blended with protein powder, a coffee sweetened with sugar, and a handful of vitamins she insisted would boost his immunity. James never questioned it. He trusted her completely, sipping his drink while she filmed them clinking mugs for Instagram stories. But in those smoothies, in those cups of coffee, Claire was adding tiny doses of a colorless, tasteless powder, arsenic. Just enough to make him weak, just enough to keep doctors confused, but not enough to kill him quickly. She wanted him to wither, to suffer, while the world watched her play the role of doting wife, and all the while, her follower count grew. Thousands admired her posts about staying strong together. Sponsorships poured in for health brands and lifestyle products. Claire was building her own empire on the slow destruction of her husband's life. What James didn't know was that his wife wasn't just poisoning him out of spite. She had a far darker motive, one that would only come to light when investigators finally uncovered the secret behind their picture-perfect life. James's health spiraled quickly. By the 3rd month of his mystery illness, he could barely finish a workout without collapsing. His skin turned pale, his hair thinned, and his once broad frame shrank into something frail and unrecognizable. Friends begged him to get second opinions, but every test came back inconclusive. Doctors were baffled. Claire turned every setback into content. She posted tearful videos of herself holding James's hand in waiting rooms, captions begging followers to pray for us. She curated sympathy while secretly tightening her grip on their brand. With James too weak to film, she took over the spotlight, launching her own fitness and lifestyle channel. "Doing this for us?" she would say with a sad smile to the camera. But in private, she mocked him for being too sick to keep up. The poison worked perfectly, just enough to mimic illness, not enough to raise alarms. Claire measured each dose carefully, slipping it into his morning routine while humming along to pop songs in the kitchen. To James, she was his caretaker, the only one standing by him while his body betrayed him. To Claire, he was an anchor, weighing her down, and she was cutting the rope strand by strand. But Claire's plan wasn't just cruelty, it was calculated greed. Months before James fell ill, she had secretly taken out a $1.5 million life insurance policy on him, naming herself the sole beneficiary. She'd used forged signatures and claimed it was for business protection. If James died, she wouldn't just inherit his assets, she would cash in on a fortune. Still, her arrogance began to show. Friends noticed her smiles, looked forced at James's bedside. His sister grew suspicious when Claire refused to let anyone else prepare his food, brushing it off with, "He only likes it my way." Even James, fogged by constant pain, started to wonder aloud why he always felt worse in the mornings, right after breakfast. Claire silenced his doubts with affection. A kiss on the forehead. A whispered promise that she would never leave his side. She posted photos of herself spoon-feeding him soup, hashtags like "Love conquers all." The comments flooded with praise for her devotion, but the mask was starting to slip. Behind closed doors, James's sister began to dig. She saved pill bottles, vitamins, and powders from Claire's kitchen, and when she showed them to a friend who worked in toxicology, the answer made her blood run cold. It wasn't vitamins keeping James alive, it was poison, slowly killing him, and the woman who claimed to be his angel of mercy was his executioner. James's sister, Melissa, didn't waste time. The toxicology friend she consulted had taken one look at the powder labeled as supplements and whispered the word no one wanted to hear: arsenic. It wasn't just suspicion anymore, it was attempted murder. Melissa went straight to the police. At first, detectives were skeptical. Poison cases were rare, and Claire's public image was flawless. She was the grieving wife, the social media darling, with thousands of followers praising her loyalty. But when investigators quietly tested the contents of the powders and vitamins Claire had been giving James, the results came back positive. There was no doubt he was being poisoned. The problem was proving it. They needed evidence of Claire in the act. So they set a trap. With James's reluctant cooperation, he could hardly believe his wife was trying to kill him. Investigators installed hidden cameras in the Dalton kitchen. James continued drinking the smoothies Claire prepared, even as his body weakened. But this time, the truth would be captured on tape. Within days, the footage told the story. Each morning, Claire hummed while making breakfast, her movements casual, practiced. She measured out a fine powder from a small, unmarked container and stirred it into James's drink. She even smiled at the camera phone she set up for Instagram stories, showing the world her morning routine with hubby. While off camera, she laced his cup with poison. When detectives showed James the footage, he broke down. Shock, rage, grief. His entire world collapsed in that moment. The woman he trusted most, the one he thought was nursing him back to health, had been orchestrating his slow death. Police moved quickly. One morning, as Claire cheerfully filmed herself carrying 2 mugs of coffee out to the patio, officers entered the home. She barely flinched when they placed her in handcuffs. "This is a mistake," she said coolly, glancing toward the cameras still recording. "I would never hurt him." But investigators already had hours of evidence proving otherwise. The arrest sent shockwaves online. Followers who once gushed over couple goals scoured her posts, horrified by the staged smiles and loving captions. Headlines screamed, "Instagram wife charged with poisoning fitness coach husband." As she was led into the police car, Claire tilted her chin toward the cameras and gave a faint smile, as if she were still performing for her audience. It was the same smile she'd worn in every post, the smile that had fooled the world while she slowly turned her husband's body into a prison of pain. But her performance was over. In its place came the trial, where her double life would be exposed, and where every like, every hashtag, every carefully curated photo would be revealed as evidence of a woman who poisoned for profit while pretending to love. The trial was a spectacle from the very first day. Reporters packed the courtroom, cameras lined the courthouse steps, and every seat was filled with strangers who had followed Claire Dalton online, eager to see the perfect wife face justice. The prosecution wasted no time dismantling her facade. They played the hidden camera footage for the jury. Claire measuring powder into James's smoothie, stirring it in with casual ease, then turning to beam at her phone for a cheery Instagram story. The contrast was chilling. One screen showed her caption, "Morning coffee with my love, couple goals," while the other showed her committing attempted murder in real time. They revealed the life insurance policy, the forged signatures, the $1.5 million payout she stood to collect. They presented expert testimony proving the powder was arsenic, explaining how its effects mimicked natural illness. Doctors who had treated James testified about how his symptoms had baffled them, how close he had come to organ failure. And then James himself took the stand. Thin, still recovering, his voice shaky. He looked directly at his wife and said, "I loved you more than anything. You were supposed to protect me. Instead, you tried to kill me, every single day." The courtroom was silent, except for the sound of Claire scribbling notes, her face unreadable. The defense painted Claire as a devoted wife under stress, claiming the powders were herbal supplements she misunderstood. They tried to argue the footage was taken out of context, that prosecutors twisted her every action. But the jury didn't buy it. Too many lies, too many coincidences. The most damning blow came when investigators presented old text messages between Claire and a close friend. In one, sent weeks before James's illness began, Claire wrote, "I'm so sick of him. If he was gone, everything would be easier. I'd finally be free." Another read, "Soon I'll have the money and the life I deserve." When those words appeared on the courtroom screen, gasps echoed through the gallery. Claire's carefully built image as a loving wife shattered in an instant. James's sister, Melissa, delivered the final victim statement. She stood before Claire, her voice shaking with fury. "You poisoned my brother while pretending to love him. You turned his suffering into a performance for likes. You don't deserve to be remembered as his wife. You'll only be remembered as the woman who tried to kill him for greed." By the time the closing arguments ended, the outcome was inevitable. Claire Dalton wasn't just a fraud. She was a predator who used love as a disguise. And the jury would have the last word. When the jury returned, the courtroom was silent, the kind of silence that seems to bend the air. Claire sat perfectly still, her hair neatly styled, her face painted in the same soft makeup she'd worn in her social media videos. For a moment, she almost looked like the woman her followers once adored, but the verdict stripped away the illusion forever. Guilty on all counts. Claire Dalton was convicted of attempted murder, insurance fraud, and aggravated assault. The judge delivered a sentence that drew a collective gasp: 40 years in prison, with no chance of parole for at least 30. The courtroom erupted. Some wept in relief, others whispered in disbelief. James sat with his sister, his hand trembling in hers, as the weight of survival finally sank in. Claire showed no emotion. No tears, no protests. Just the same faint smile she'd worn when the handcuffs first clicked around her wrists. To some, it looked like defiance. To others, it was chilling proof that she had never loved him, not even for a second. Outside, the world reacted with fury. Comment sections filled with disbelief. How could she smile while poisoning him? "I used to follow them. This is insane." Hashtags that once celebrated her marriage turned into hashtags condemning her. Couple goals to kill her. Justice for James. James spent months rebuilding his strength. His body, racked by poison for so long, carried permanent scars. But he refused to let Claire define his future. He returned to his fitness business, slowly, carefully, with Melissa by his side. In interviews, he said, "She stole years from me, but she didn't take my life. I won't let her win." Claire, meanwhile, became infamous behind bars. Inmates called her the Instagram widow. She bragged about her follower count, about the attention she still received from the outside world. But as the years passed, her relevance faded. Her accounts were deleted, her brand dismantled, her name remembered only in whispers of betrayal. The house where James and Claire once filmed their morning coffee videos was sold, the new owners tearing down the kitchen that had been her stage for murder. Neighbors said it felt cursed, a place where smiles had masked death. And yet, the most haunting part of the story wasn't the crime itself, it was how easily she fooled everyone. Millions of people had hit like on photos of a marriage that was slowly being poisoned. Friends had envied them. Strangers had looked up to them. Claire Dalton had built her empire on a lie, and for a time, the world believed it. In the end, the only thing more poisonous than the arsenic she slipped into James's cup was the performance she gave to the world. The illusion of love, wrapped in hashtags and staged smiles, while every sip brought her husband closer to death.